The towering peaks of the Himalayas have been a frequently recurring locale across many of the videos on my channel, as the Himalayas' massive, magnificent mountains have claimed many lives throughout the years, and not only the lives of mountaineers attempting to ascend the looming, majestic slopes of these grand Himalayan peaks, but also the lives of the local people living in the many small villages that dot the valleys beneath them. As I covered extensively in my video about the devastating earthquake in Nepal in 2015, despite their impressive size, the Himalayas are actually one of the Earth's youngest mountain ranges, and thus the area is prone to frequent seismic activity as the continental plates beneath them perpetually shift and slip. Subsequently, the tremors from the resulting earthquakes often result in massive avalanches that can wipe out swaths of infrastructure in the region, and even entire villages in one fell swoop. However, despite the high altitude, steep terrain, extreme remoteness, and general harshness of the region, these small, remote villages within the Himalayan valleys have existed for thousands of years. Now, if you're a longtime fan of the channel, you might recall from my video about the infamous Yeti Airlines crash at the Lukla airport that I mentioned in that video that one of the main challenges faced by many of these high-altitude Himalayan villages is that they are not reachable by road at all due to their location, and thus they are forced to import goods from the greater outside world via the use of planes. However, for villages that are slightly less remote than the village of Lukla, there is a road that sluices through the Himalayan glacial valleys of India and connects many of these remote villages to the outside world, although this remote roadway is not a journey for the faint of heart, as the thin, crumbling, and curving dirt roads of the Leh-Manali highway are precariously etched through the Himalayan hillsides, and this road is flanked on one side by steep drop-offs of hundreds of meters, vertical drops not dissimilar in size to those encountered by mountaineers ascending the slopes of any of the great peaks reaching into the surrounding skies above. Naturally, this presents little room for error for drivers on the roadway and makes every passing of opposing traffic on the narrow road a hair-raising affair, as even the slightest mistake could send the vehicle and its occupants hurtling down the steep slopes and into the valleys below in a mere instant. And due to the harrowing conditions found on the Leh-Manali highway, it has been dubbed by many as the world's most dangerous highway, which I might note is not to be confused with the Highway of Death in Kuwait and Iraq, which I covered in a previous video. Check it out. On the rainy evening of August 22nd, 2018, a group of 11 passengers, which consisted of a 40-year-old woman named Kalpana Devi, a 30-year-old woman named Anjana, a 23-year-old woman named Monica, a 22-year-old woman named Meena, a 7-year-old girl named Kunti, a 2-year-old boy named Ayushman, a 1.5-year-old boy named Nakash, a 29-year-old man named Prem Raj, a 40-year-old man named Dharam Singh, a man named Prem Singh, and a woman named Usha Kumari, all loaded into a white Mahindra Scorpio model SUV in the town of Manali as they prepared to set off on their journey along the Leh-Manali highway, making their way towards the many small villages in the remote Pangi Valley. By the time the group of travelers had set off on their road trip, the little daylight that they had left until sundown had been largely obfuscated by the thick storm clouds above them. But undaunted by the less than ideal weather conditions, the SUV would enter the Leh-Manali highway and began to make its way towards the Pengi Valley to the northwest. As the evening hours progressed, the white SUV and its occupants slowly plodded down the treacherous, muddy road, contending with flooded sections of the road at some points as the monsoon season rain continued to fall in sheets with no signs of relenting. Furthermore, with few places on the highway to exit and with the road's width being far too narrow to attempt to turn around, the 11 passengers in the white SUV would be forced to commit to their trip along the road for quite some distance at the very least, even if the seemingly worsening weather conditions had caused them to have second thoughts about their road trip that evening. However, the group did seemingly have one thing going for them as they made their way along the highway. Traffic along the road was eerily still, as the group did not encounter a single other vehicle as they drove along, as seemingly no other drivers were willing to brave the conditions on the road in the foul weather. Just after midnight at 12:22 a.m. that morning, the 11 travelers would cross the Gulaba barrier and would opt to continue along the highway, slowly winding their way along the treacherous roadway, all alone in the pouring rain and pitch darkness, with a seemingly endless dark void beneath them looming along its far edge. As the minutes of the early morning hours continued to pass, the dense rainfall continued to fall in sheets with no signs of abating. At approximately 1:30 a.m. that morning, 47 kilometers from their starting point in Manali, on a notoriously tricky section of the road to navigate, even in clear weather conditions, Rotong Pass, unfortunately, the group's luck would suddenly take a tragic turn for the worse, as the SUV would skid along the muddy road as the driver seemingly grappled to maintain control of the vehicle before it eventually skidded off the side of the highway, sending the vehicle and its 11 occupants hurtling into the dark void of the 600-meter deep gorge below. And by the time the twisted wreckage of the Scorpio had come to a halt from its fall, all 11 passengers had perished as a result of the accident. Due to the absence of any other vehicles on the road at the time of the accident, it had gone completely unwitnessed, and the remains of the white SUV were spotted at the bottom of the gorge by locals traveling along the road later on the morning of August 23rd, after weather conditions had improved, and these locals would begin their own efforts to investigate the scene of the crash below in an attempt to search for potential survivors, and also contacted authorities to inform them of their gruesome discovery. At around the same time that locals contacted these officials to inform them of this discovery, local police were just beginning to have concerns of their own of the SUV's fate from the previous evening, as after passing the Gulaba barrier at 12:22 a.m., the group had failed to cross the subsequent Coxar barrier as they should have sometime that morning, and official search and rescue teams were dispatched to the site of the deadly skid to investigate the scene and to rescue potential survivors. Both police and locals, including many of the victims' family members, found that the site was extremely difficult to reach, and it would take them several hours of coordination to finally descend upon the mangled wreckage of the SUV at the bottom of the gorge. Reaching it in the late afternoon, they would quickly surmise that there were no survivors of the fatal fall, and efforts to recover the victims' bodies were carried out over the following few days, although officials would opt to forgo recovering the remnants of the Scorpio from the bottom of the gorge, as it remains there to this day, although it is not as immediately apparent to passers-by as it once was, with its metal frame rusting, exposed to the elements, its vibrant white paint faded by the sun, with the wreckage being slowly swallowed by the foliage in the gorge below, a fading reminder of the all too real and omnipresent dangers of traveling along this harrowing highway in the Himalayas. Thank you all for watching.